talk forever, and I have no problem doing that. So making sure you have a backup plan is very important. Now, I do apologize. We forgot to start the recording. We all reminded ourselves to start the recording, and none of us actually started the recording. But you get to miss everything that I said, but most of it was a tangent, anyways. So we're back to where we started from, is making sure that you set your clear objectives, which was starting the recording at the beginning. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it off from here, and I'll let the next person take over.
All right, so before we talk about engaging everyone during this time, I'd like to start with a little icebreaker. Can I have each of you guys type in the chat box using an emoji, thumbs up for saying, expressing your thoughts on webinars or synchronous learning, a thumbs up saying you got confidence, clock saying time management, or a confused face for time for struggling. So can you type in the chat box using those emojis, please? All right, I think that's everybody. I see everyone's confident. This is my first time, so it's a little different for me. So all right, so let me start with using a poll and quizzes. Not only can you do what we just did with in the chat box, but you can engage participants using a poll or quizzes. And what's nice is Zoom has that application built inside, so it makes everything easy. Introductory activity will build the engagement from the start. And having virtual scavenger hunts, I do this in class online, and simply having somebody grab some kind of thing, any kind of thing you have, grabbing something from the house just to show it, and kind of it just kind of opens the mood, I guess. And the next thing is to incorporate interactivity, again, using the chat, the polls, question and answers, and setting breakout rooms to keep participants engaged. And this limits your participants, so it makes it a smaller size, and it's a little bit easier, I guess, to get along with everyone and speak. Ask open-ended questions. This promotes discussions, active learning with thoughtful questions. So you want to use open-ended questions, not a lot of yes, no's. It doesn't deepen the thought. And call on participants by name. This creates a personal experience. Uh, it encourages participation, and it makes the environment inviting. You feel wanted, and that's all right. I'm going to send it over to Sonia.
Hi. Using quality audio, video, and visuals. So to ensure clear audio and visuals, you want to invest in good microphones. A high quality microphone can significantly improve audio clarity, making it easier for your audience to engage with your content. Um, you definitely want to invest in that. Um, invest in lighting. I mean, you can always buy a ring light. So proper lighting enhances your visibility. Natural light is good. I use that at school. That is not helpful. But consider investing in softbox lights or ring lights for consistent quality. And then invest in a webcam. Position your camera at eye level and ensure it captures you clearly, using a tripod for stability to avoid shaky footage. And I mean, I'm gonna harp on a webcam because I teach online for high school, and Miss Anita, if you will sh share our cameras. Um, I have a very cheap camera at school. Um, my kids complain that they can't see me sometimes or I'm buzzy. And hopefully, after speaking to my principal today, um, I picked I think it's the Orbit or Ozbot. There you go. This is a game changer because it like captures everything. It has the AI commands like to capture like movements, gestures, and you can actually use them too in real time. So invest in that camera. It's high quality. Let me see, where am I now? Use engaging and simple visuals. You can balance text with images and videos using visuals to complement your message. Infographics. We've done infographics in class. And like for a slide, you don't want to overwhelm it too much. And an infographic is great because even students or even you yourself, you can have handouts to give or let people download it. Relevant images and short video clips can help illustrate your points without overwhelming the audience with text. Screen sharing, and we just showed you our screen sharing with the cameras. That is something we have to do on a daily when you want to show somebody something. So we keep slides uncluttered, use a clean layout with minimal text, focus on key points, as you can see in all of our slides that we have shown you today. Focus on the key points and support your main ideas and directly relevant content. You want to make sure that your slide adds value to your presentation and avoid unnecessary information because we don't want to distract you or confuse you as the audience. So I'm going to hand it over.
So now I'm going to pretend to be Amanda, and we're going to go over managing pacing, timing, and inclusivity. So one of the main things, again, talking earlier, is you want to keep the session focused. It's extremely easy to go off on a tangent or to repeat yourself over and over again. Delivering content in manageable chunks is extremely important, especially when talking about complicated tasks. You don't want to just go ahead and throw the whole book at them. You want to be able to scaffold your way up to the big picture. So delivering content manageably is much easier than throwing the whole thing at them at once. And then use breaks as needed. A lot of seminars that I have to go to all the time, they try to talk for 3 hours straight, and that's completely mind-numbing at that point. And it's really hard, and you just lose focus. And so when I'm in class, when I'm teaching, when I'm doing my seminars, I definitely just do mental breaks every hour, hour and a half or so, just to get people to refresh, to go to the restroom, to get coffee, whatever they need to do to just step away from a little bit, because you just can't sit there and absorb information for 3 hours straight. It's just not going to happen. No matter how good of a speaker you are, it's just not going to happen. And then you want to plan for extra time at the end for questions and participation. Now, in my experience, a lot of people are very nervous when it comes to asking questions because they don't want to look stupid. They don't want to look like they don't understand something. And so a lot of times you want to still prepare that time, even if you don't get asked questions during the audience time, because I guarantee that people are going to walk up to you after you're done and want to ask you questions in private or one-on-one because they don't want to ask them out loud. And so you have to prepare and expect that people are going to want to talk to you at some point because you're supposed to be the expert on the topic that you're talking about. And so planning that extra time for the participation, giving them the opportunity to come up and speak to you is extremely important and makes you look better as a whole for your production purposes. And then you want to foster inclusivity, providing captions or transcripts. Luckily, Zoom is really good at that. With the recordings these days, it actually records and transcribes everything that you say. And what's really nice for that, especially if you have a long meeting, is you can use it to take minutes and take those minutes and then plug them into an AI and then have the AI go ahead and give you a nice, concise version of those particular minutes. So using all the information, all the technology you have to your advantage is extremely important for anyone that's got any sort of learning disability or anyone that needs any extra help or learns through different styles or well, don't let Melissa Ward hear that because there's definitely no learning styles. There's, cut that out of the recording, please. So anyways, we want to also encourage people to participate. We want to use the chat or polling options, especially for those that don't want to speak out loud, for those that are a little bit nervous. And so being able to allow for that anonymity is really important in participation. So again, I'm not going to take up too much of your time. I'm going to hand it off to Anita and let her finish us off today.
Thank you, Andrew. So, facilitating post-session follow-up and improvement. Now that we're starting to wrap up this session, there's a few important things that you'll need to ensure, or that we'll need to ensure that you leave with. And same for your own webinars that you'll need to ensure that your audience leaves with. And that's to continue to improve for future sessions, because you'll have future webinar or web conferencing sessions. So you'll end with clear takeaways. You'll summarize the key points from your webinar, maybe even provide some actionable steps that can help your audience within their own practice. The goal is to try and ensure that you're not only understanding the content, but that you know how to apply it too with strategies and different practices. Next, you'll provide resources to support your learning. So, for example, after this session, you'll be receiving an email with the recording, also a copy of the slides, everything in a Google Drive that was discussed today, and any additional material that might be helpful for deeper exploration. This way you have everything that you need at your fingertips to review, but also to kind of reinforce what you've learned in this webinar, something that will remain with you in the future. Finally, we would want your feedback. Usually it'd be gathered through like a follow-up survey that we can send out, and you guys within your own practice would send out too, for asking for feedback regarding the webinar from your audience. This helps you understand what went well. It can help you know where to improve. And then we'll also take a look at engagement data and make sure that future sessions meet your needs even better. So all in all, with those steps, we ensure that your learning doesn't stop here and that each session becomes more effective than the last. So, in the chat, I'm going to put a link to that Google Drive. That way you guys have it here, but we can also send out an email with all that information. But within that Google Drive is all of our resources that we talked about today, the slides, part of the recording, not the first slide, but you know. But yeah, so if we wanna open it up to a Q&A. So in the chat, if you guys want to take some time and put some questions that maybe you had regarding the content, and we'll be happy to jump in and answer any of those questions that you guys might have.
And we'll take the first question from Miss Dr. Pata.
So I'm thinking back to when you talked about getting feedback via surveys. Any thoughts about what kinds of feedback you're thinking about?
Some feedback that you would give, or some feedback would be maybe regarding the content if you want to be content specific. Other feedback would be just the engagement factor of the webinar as a whole. I think it depends on the type of content that the webinar is giving regarding what kind of feedback you're wanting. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, absolutely. And I just think about, because I've done all of these things, you name it. I haven't really presented to like 500 people that I don't know, but probably 100, maybe max 200. And I've presented to people I know, and on and on. And many of and we would always provide opportunities for feedback, the like 1-page evaluation type things. And we had to kind of be careful with that, because depending on your audience, you can get, a couple of negative feedback scenarios. And let's say you had 100 people in your thing and you get 50 surveys back. and 48 of them are positive and 2 are negative, and we would dwell on the negative, and that was maybe possibly our personalities or something. And so we had to come up with different strategies because it was kind of stressful on our psyches because we did so much of this kind of stuff. So when you brought that up, it reminded me to just kind of remind you all that you want to be a little bit careful sometimes about how you structure some of that feedback scenario and your expectations about that, because it's also not always necessary to do evaluations if you're never going to revisit the scenario again, right? And you just might as well like let it let yourself go forward with, hey, the satisfaction, I did it. Anyway, I really appreciate the presentation, and if anybody else has any questions, I'll leave the floor.
Oh yeah, of course. If anybody has any questions, you can put it again in the chat and we'll be happy to answer. I do have a second poll. A second, would you rather? If you guys would like to participate in that, would you rather attend a 2-hour webinar with no breaks or attend 5 30-minute webinars spread across the week? Okay, so this one there was a clear winner. Yeah, I would prefer the 2-hour webinar.
It's nice because you get it one and done, but at the same time, it's quite a big chunk of time. And how many of us actually have 2 hours to spare here and there too?
I think the problem with spreading it out over a bunch of days, though, is that breaks up my days, too many of my days. And so, as you all noted, those long meetings are really tough on your cognition and on your brain, and it's really hard to do that. But I do think 2 hours is not as terrible as like 5 hours.
Yeah.
I don't recommend those 5-hour ones.
Oh yeah. Okay, well, if nobody else has any questions, let me go ahead and stop sharing.